Gobi astronaut. In 1834, in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the famous English explorer and cartographer Charles Edwin discovered a mysterious cave in the rock. Inside the cave was an unusually large skeleton, almost 5 meters in length, with a proportionally enlarged skull and curved ribs. Next to the skeleton lay metal objects, severely distorted by corrosion, but one object attracted the attention of scientists: a stone slab with a map of the starry sky and directions that did not correspond to known star systems. The plate, according to Edwin, was not just an artifact, but a tool for navigation or part of an ancient astronomical device. Interestingly, research has shown that the slab material contains rare earth elements that are not common to the region where the cave was found. This gave rise to speculation about the possible extraterrestrial origin of both the slab itself and the creature whose remains lay nearby. Further examination of the stone slab revealed that the cartographic markings on it could have been used for navigation in outer space, suggesting that the creature could have been a pilot or explorer from a distant star system. Scientists have suggested that the creature's death could have been the result of the crash of its ship, parts of which could have been scattered across the desert and buried under layers of sand for centuries. This discovery has remained little known due to political and scientific disputes over the origins and meanings of the artifacts found, but it continues to cause controversy among scientists and adventurers seeking to uncover the secrets of ancient civilizations. An artifact more valuable than gold. In 2023, in Carlisle, in the north of England, on the site of an ancient Roman bath, a unique artifact made of a special substance was discovered, more valuable than gold for the ancient Romans. This item, found by volunteers and archaeologists, is a solid example of Tyrian purple. To obtain this ancient dye, it was necessary to process about 12,000 shellfish living in the Mediterranean region. Tyrian purple, best known for its production in the city of Tyre in Lebanon, was prized for its brightness and durability and was used for dyeing clothing and wall paintings. The process of its production was complex and labor-intensive, which made this pigment extremely expensive and accessible only to the highest strata of society of the Roman Empire. The specimen found at Carlisle was used to create murals or dye fabrics. This is the only known example of a solid example of Tyrian purple in Northern Europe and possibly throughout the Roman Empire. This discovery not only highlights the complexity and richness of ancient Roman culture, but also contributes to further study of the interactions of ancient civilizations and the spread of their cultural and material achievements beyond traditional boundaries. Helped swallow, breathe, and talk. Polish archaeologists have discovered a unique medical prosthesis designed for a person with a cleft palate, which is about 300 years old. This defect occurs when the roof of the mouth does not close properly during development and can now be corrected with surgery. However, 3 centuries ago, people were forced to look for other solutions. The prosthesis was found in the Church of St. Francis of Assisi in Krakow and is the first of its kind found in Poland. It was probably custom-made for a specific person with a cleft palate to make their life more comfortable. The device was inserted into the mouth and filled the gap in the roof of the mouth, performing functions necessary for normal life. The uniqueness of this prosthesis lies in its design. It consists of 2 parts, a metal plate that acts as a hard palate and a woolen lining for a snug fit to the mouth. The hard palate helps with swallowing, breathing, and speaking, and also holds objects in the mouth, preventing them from entering the nasal cavity. This small device, about 3 centimeters long and weighing only 6 grams, was quite advanced for its time. To study the prosthesis in more detail, scientists used a special microscope and X-ray analysis. They discovered that the metal parts were made of copper mixed with gold and silver. The wool pad contained traces of silver iodide, probably to protect against germs and maintain cleanliness. Petrified book. Archaeologists from Australia have stumbled upon a mysterious book-shaped artifact estimated to be more than 330 million years old. Yes, I know that not everyone likes it when I talk about thousands and millions of years. Therefore, this discovery caused a lot of controversy and speculation among scientists. Thomas Kaminsky, an antiquities researcher, claims that they found a mineralized book with a metal binding, but it is no longer possible to read it. Archaeology professor Jane Balmay was also also amazed by the find, although she expressed doubts about its antiquity. Other experts marvel at how the book's pages have survived for millions of years. Geology professor Ian Plimer explains that under certain conditions in an oxygen-free environment and under pressure, paper can petrify. Kaminsky believes that the depth at which the book was found indicates its authenticity. However, the question remains as to why the book looks like a modern copy. Could this be an artifact left behind by a time traveler? The lost link of evolution. The origin of man from monkeys can be debated endlessly, but individual stories of people indirectly confirm this theory. Thus, the show in Philadelphia presented the missing link between man and ape. Creo, a girl from Siam, Thailand, born in 1876. From birth, she was covered with hair, including a silky mane between her shoulder blades. At the age of 6, she was found by the showman the Great Farini, who took the girl on a tour of Europe and then the United States. Creo became a star of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Creo was nicknamed the Monkey Woman and was often associated with Darwin's missing link. She was supposed to belong to a race of ape-like tree-dwelling people. Despite the controversy of this statement, many famous naturalists and scientists accepted this version. Numerous works have been written about Creo, including the 1896 book Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine, which describes her anthropomorphic features in detail. In fact, Creo was an intelligent and educated woman who knew several languages and suffered from hypertrichosis. Unlike others, Creo was not exploited and lived a decent life, demonstrating herself on her own terms. She spent the last 20 years of her life in a private apartment where she delighted guests and neighbors with her culinary skills and charm. Creo died of influenza on April 16, 1926, unmarried but still faithful to her unique lifestyle. Oldest stomach stone. Ready for a shocking new discovery? This time, we traveled back 150 million years to study the oldest stomach stone ever found. This stone fist, about the size of your own fist, was found off the coast of Great Britain and dates back to the Jurassic period, 59 million years older than any previously known stomach stone. Now, as to who might have been the owner of this stone, it's quite difficult to determine without the surrounding skeletal structures. But Nigel Larkin, a paleontologist at the University of Reading, suggests that the stone could have been part of the digestive system of some large marine reptile, such as an ichthyosaur or a plesiosaur. It is worth noting that dinosaurs which lived more on land could hardly have been the owners of this stone, but despite this find is amazing and extremely rare. Stomach stones are nothing but natural mineral formations that can develop inside various organisms from human to ichthyosaurs. Such stones were even found in the stomachs of Egyptian mummies, but a much smaller size. This ancient stomach stone confirms that such formations existed not only among terrestrial, but also marine inhabitants of antiquity. Astronomical Compendium of 1550. Here's an interesting fact from archaeology. Once upon a time, there were such devices as astronomical compendiums. These were small tools for complex calculations packed in one box. Astronomical compendiums cost a lot and were a sign of the wealth of their owner. One such compendium, made around 1550 in Augsburg, is made of gilded brass. Such a compendium included many tools, including a passage instrument for determining the time at night from the stars, lists of latitudes, a magnetic compass, a list of ports and harbors, a perpetual calendar, and a lunar indicator. With the help of the astronomical compendium, it was possible to find out the current time, the height of the tide in ports, and perform calendar calculations. All this was so amazing and useful that today it is even difficult to imagine how such complex functions fit in such a small device. Lost part of the statue of Ramesses II. In 1930, German archaeologist Günther Raeder discovered in Egypt the lower part of a statue of Ramesses II, known as Ramesses the Great, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BC. The statue was split and its upper part remained lost for centuries. After a long search, the upper part of the statue was finally found in Hermopolis, which was turned into an open-air museum. The discovery was made thanks to the efforts of archaeologists from Egypt and the United States during excavations in Hermopolis, which is located near near al-Shumain. Hermopolis was one of the main religious centers of antiquity dedicated to the god of wisdom Thoth. The upper part of the statue, 3.8 meters long, discovered on the layers of sand, depicts the pharaoh wearing the traditional cobra headdress. The statue is made of limestone, with hieroglyphs glorifying Ramesses II engraved on its back. The find also contained traces of ancient paint, which will enable scientists to accurately date the creation of the statue and establish its origin. Ramesses II is known as one of the greatest pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. During his long life, he built many significant structures and strengthened Egypt's military and diplomatic power. Stone with mysterious marks. A geography teacher named Graham Sr. was clearing out an overgrown garden outside his Coventry home when he came across a stone with mysterious cuts. Intrigued by the find, he sent the photographs to a local archaeologist. Graham was shocked to learn that the marks on the stone were made more than 1,500 years ago and that the artifact was worthy of museum display. The rectangular sandstone stone was covered with writing in the Ogham alphabet, which was used in the early Middle Ages primarily to write the Irish language. Before the advent of parchment manuscripts, the Irish used the Ogham systems, which consisted of parallel lines carved into stone or wood. Rare examples of such stones provide important data about early Irish language and culture. Catherine Forsyth, professor of saltology at the University of Glasgow, confirmed that this is a ladder from the Agamas dating from around the 4th–6th centuries. The stone, 11 centimeters long and weighing 139 grams, has inscription on 3 of its 4 sides. Its purpose remains a mystery, but scientists speculate that it could have been a portable memento. The inscription on the stone consists of 2 parts. The first part contains the person's name, male Damkeel. The second part is less clear and may be an indication of location, but the exact meaning remains unknown. Secret Sacked Horoscope. A mysterious scroll called horoscope was found in the Judean desert. It refers to ancient texts associated with the secret teachings of the mysterious children of light sect. This unique manuscript has attracted the attention of scientists for its contents, which touch on astrology and elements of mysticism that were practiced thousands of years ago. The scroll is written in Hebrew, but there are symbols in Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. A peculiarity of the text is that it is written in reverse order, from right to left, which indicates its special significance for the sect. Dr. Oren Abelman, an expert on the Judean Desert Scrolls, suggests that the text may have been used as instructions to the sect's senior leadership. Horoscope includes a unique belief system that states that a person's date of birth influences their zodiac sign, characteristics, and the balance between light and darkness in the soul. According to the scroll, each day of the year is associated with a certain degree of light or darkness, which in turn affects a person's inherent qualities of good or evil. The text also mentions a strict initiation process for new members of the Children of Light sect. The scroll was used to create individual horoscopes where the date of birth determined the personality and physical characteristics of the candidate. This process, according to Dr. Abelman, was not just a ritual, but a test of the candidate's ability to fully accept the teachings and customs of the sect. Discovery of Noah's Ark. In 1959, Captain Ilan Deripanar, while working on aerial photography for NATO in Turkey, made an unexpected discovery. At an altitude of 2,000 meters, he noticed unusual geological formations resembling the contours of a huge ship. This discovery caused a lot of controversy and speculation that the found remains could be Noah's Ark. The discovery attracted the attention of both scientists and adventurers. Despite numerous expeditions and research in subsequent years, it has still not been possible to find clear evidence confirming the biblical story of the Ark. However, this region continues to be a subject of scientific interest. In support of the possibility of the real existence of events such as the biblical flood, geological studies in the Black Sea region have shown that a catastrophic flood did occur about 6,000 years ago. This could be caused by massive melting of glaciers, which led to a significant rise in global sea levels. In addition, clay tablets dating from the same period have been found in Mesopotamia. One such tablet describes the story of a great flood and the rescue of various species of animals on a ship, which has notable parallels with the story of Noah in the Bible. These findings indicate that the motives for global disasters and ship rescues may have deep historical roots that permeate many cultures and civilizations. Ancient calendars in the USA. At Castle Rock Pueblo on the Mesa Verde Plateau in the United States, where Colorado and Utah meet, archaeologists have made astonishing discoveries. In an area known for its unusual rock formations and ancient cave paintings, scientists have discovered many new petroglyphs. New engravings on a stone that is about 3,000 years old may change our understanding of the culture and history of this area. Archaeologist Radoslav Polonka from the Jagiellonian University said that at an altitude of about 800 meters above the known settlements, numerous lines and spirals were discovered engraved on the walls. The spirals, whose diameter reaches 1 meter, could be used as calendars to mark important dates and conduct astronomical observations. These finds can radically change the perception of this era, when the Pueblo people led an agricultural lifestyle and made baskets and mats. Devil's Tracks. On the night of February 8 to 9, 1855, mysterious hoofprints appeared in the snow of Devon. They could be seen on rooftops, fields, and narrow streets from up to 100 miles away. The journey of the tracks was not interrupted even in front of obstacles in the form of walls or rivers. Many believed that these were traces of Satan himself. These tracks, also known as Devil's Hoofs, left behind an inexplicable path. The prints resembled those of a donkey, but their placement suggested a bipedal creature. Each track was about 8 centimeters wide and about 10 centimeters long, and the distance between them was from 20 to 40 centimeters. The tracks extended throughout the Devon region, including the accessory area. One of the most unusual aspects was that the tracks appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared. Sometimes they paused at a pile of hay to resume on the other side. In the Times newspaper of February 16, 1885, these marks were called Satan's prints. Many quickly linked the phenomenon to the prints of darkness, especially when footprints appeared on doorsteps and around churches. Some people believed the tracks were fake. Some considered possible sources of traces of cats, hares, mice, and badgers. However, no animal could leave marks on the roof. Of course, there were aliens. Some associated the tracks with UFOs or sea monsters. Scientist Mike Dash suggested that there could be different reasons behind the tracks. However, the exact origin of the tracks still remains unknown. Some continue to believe that it was Satan who wandered Devon on the fateful night in 1855. What do you think about this? Write your opinion in the comments. Gilded Statue of Hercules. Here's a story that any archaeologist will tell with delight. Imagine that you're digging a hole in the heart of Rome and then boom! A huge bronze finger sticks right out of the ground. It happened in 1864 in the Campo de Fiore Square, when workers were working to strengthen the foundations of the ancient palace of Palazzo Pio Righetti. Having come across a huge wall and columns, they continued to dig deeper and deeper, and here a bronze finger was in the ground. So big you might think it's from a monster, but who could have expected that an entire statue was hidden underground? Archaeologists, of course, continued to excavate, and soon they found the rest of the statue, a huge bronze Hercules and a bronze lion, which Hercules defeated. But the statue was damaged, its feet were missing, and there was a hole in the back of its head. Why was it there? In Rome, there were many beliefs, and one of them said, if lightning struck something, then it must be quickly buried because the gods do not like it. Apparently, lightning struck the statue and drilled through the back of its head. Therefore, the inhabitants of Rome decided to bury it. And what about the walls and columns that the workers discovered? It turned out to be an ancient theater built by Pompey. It cunningly bypassed the ban on the construction of theaters in Rome, first building a temple and then attaching a theater to it. By the way, now there is a restaurant where you can feel like a real Roman. As a result, the statue of Hercules was restored and placed in the Vatican. So if you're going there, be sure to take the time to have a look. Older than paper. A story that will surprise and delight all explorers. Archaeologists have found more than 10,000 ancient bamboo and wood inscriptions that are over 2,000 years old. These were original books of antiquity, and they were found in Yunnan, a Chinese province in the southwest. Have you ever seen bamboo books? These are such interesting and unique things that people used before the invention of paper. A wood for the creation of books began to be used much later. Most of the records found date back to the Han Dynasty, which is considered one of the most important in Chinese history. On the plates, archaeologists have found various texts about agriculture, medicine, as well as many administrative documents. Of particular interest to researchers were seal prints because they tell us about the ancient kingdom of Dian, which was later annexed to the territory of the Han Dynasty. This indicates that ancient China was a country of multi-ethnic cultures. Among the texts, even parts of the Analects of Confucius, an important philosophical textbook on Confucianism, were found. So on these bamboo and wooden plates you can find information about everything, from court documents to texts about transport and ethnic relations. Ruins of houses and roads were found at the same archaeological site, which indicates the life of the ancient inhabitants of the Yunnan region. The other side of the Pope. Balthazar Cossa, who became John XXIII, proved that even a pirate could find himself on the papal throne. His life began in 1370 on the island of Procida, and from an early age, he became interested in piracy along with his brothers. However, at the request of his mother, he went to study in Bologna and quickly turned from a robber into a theologian. At the university, Balthazar formed the Ten Devils gang, was involved in petty racketeering, and even met his love, the witch Yandra della Scala. But after her arrest by the Inquisition, he killed 2 inquisitors and went to prison himself, from where his friends rescued him. After escaping, Balthazar returned to piracy until his ship was wrecked, at which point he vowed to become a priest if he survived. Having survived and fulfilled his vow, Balthazar encountered Pope Urban VI and was involved in the dark affairs of the papal court, becoming an executioner and murderer. After Urban's death, his successor Benedict XVI sent Balthazar to suppress the uprising in Bologna, which he did with particular cruelty. As a reward, Balthazar received control of the city. Continuing his path in the church hierarchy, he took out a loan and bought himself a bishopric. After the death of Alexander V, Balthazar took the opportunity and was elected pope, becoming John XXIII. However, his reign was short. At the Council of Constance, he was overthrown, accusing him of many crimes. Not giving up, Balthazar escaped but was caught and released for a large sum. Returning to Bologna, he lived to the end of his days, dying of cancer. On his grave, there is a monument by Donatello. The story of Balthazar Cossa shows how unpredictable people's destinies can be and how sometimes even the most incredible personalities can leave a noticeable mark on history. Throughout the history of the Catholic Church, a great variety of terrible, vile, and mystical evidence has accumulated. This story is just a small confirmation. If you want to learn more about the history of the Vatican, the archives of the Pope, and cooperation not only with the Nazis, write in the comments under the video. The discovery created problems with the law. The sword, dating back from around 850 AD, sheds light on the turbulent period of conflict between the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings in Great Britain. One day, while exploring the River Cherwell in Oxfordshire, Trevor Penny expected to find metal debris. However, his magnet picked up something else, an ancient Viking sword dating back to around 850 AD. The relic was recovered from the river in November last year. Covered with corrosion and deposits, the sword was restored to its original appearance thanks to the joint work of Penny and local archaeologists. The find takes us back to a turbulent time in England's history when the country became a battlefield between Anglo-Saxon conquerors and Danish Vikings. The era was full of battles, including the Viking raid at Plymouth and their defeat by Anglo-Saxon forces led by King Arethelwulf of Wessex and his son Aethelstan. Penny later faced questions about the legality of using magnets for searching and the ownership of the artifact. Problems arose with the landowner and river trust, prohibiting the use of magnets for fishing. To avoid going to jail, Penny agreed to donate the sword to the museum. This raises the question, did the amateur archaeologists really violate any laws, or did the authorities want to take away the ancient artifact in this way? Write your opinion in the comments under the video. The mystery of the flying stones. India is always shrouded in secrets and mysteries. In any corner of it you can encounter something amazing and incredible. Many come here for new experiences to discover unknown spiritual possibilities in themselves. Once you have visited this amazing country, it is impossible to forget it. One of the mysteries of India is the levitating stones in the small village of Shivapur, which is located 200 kilometers from Bombay. Near the local temple, there are several boulders whose weight exceeds 50 kilograms. These stones, according to local residents, can rise into the air. It takes 11 men to lift the first, heavier stone. They must stand around it and say certain words. After this, the stone begins to levitate and can be held with one finger. The smaller boulder requires 9 men to lift. There is also a third stone weighing over 60 kilograms, which only the monks of the temple can lift. The origin of these stones is mysterious. Some believe they were sent by the gods, others think they broke off from a nearby rock. A local resident who takes care of the temple claims that the stones break from time to time and he replaces them with new ones by chipping them from the rock. But even new stones retain their flying properties. Some scientists suggest that ancient people were able to move objects with the power of thought, as for example during the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. The knowledge of levitation may have been lost, but sometimes resurfaces in places like Shivapur. Interestingly, in the last century, Edward Litzkalning, an immigrant from Latvia, used similar methods to build his coral castle in Florida, which only confirms the existence of such knowledge. These unexplained phenomena support the hypothesis of extraterrestrial influence on ancient civilizations, suggesting that some technologies or methods may have been transmitted to humanity by representatives of other worlds. Human bone tiara. Archaeologists in Altai have discovered ancient jewelry that is about 40,000 years old. They were found in Denisova cave. One of the unique finds was a diadem made from the bone of a large mammal, preliminarily human. Such artifacts had not previously been found in the monuments of the Denisovan culture. In addition to the diadem, archaeologists found in the cave beads and pendants of various shapes, made of stone, shells, bones, animal teeth, and mammoth tusks. Denisova cave is a famous archaeological site where numerous artifacts and remains of ancient animals were discovered from 1977 to 1984. The remains of Denisovans, a species of human related to Neanderthals, were also found there. Denisovans separated from the Neanderthals about 640,000 years ago. Interestingly, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Cro-Magnons, ancestors of modern humans, coexisted and even interbred. Denisovan DNA is present in the genomes of many people in Asia and Oceania. What other secrets do you think Denisova cave holds? Write in the comments under the video. Light-skinned blue-eyed giants. For centuries, there have been rumors about giant people who lived on Earth in the distant past. Bone finds around the world support this myth. One of the most mysterious places with such finds is Santa Catalina Island off the coast of California. Santa Catalina is a small, cozy island near Los Angeles, part of the Channel Islands archipelago. Its history begins with the settlement of the Gabrielina Indians about 7,000 years ago. After them, both Spaniards and Mexicans visited here until the island became part of the United States. The story of young Ralph Glidden, who moved to the island in 1896, deserves special attention. After finding an Indian skull, he became interested in searching for ancient relics. Growing up, Ralph conducted many archaeological excavations, finding over 800 graves and many artifacts. He sold these relics to museums and private collectors. The Catalina Island Museum, founded by Glidden, is known for its unique exhibits. Among them, the skeletons found by Glidden became especially popular, but the greatest resonance was caused by his application of the discovery of the remains of people 210–270 centimeters tall. According to him, they had a European appearance, blonde hair, and blue eyes. One of the amazing finds was the skeleton of a girl surrounded by the remains of 64 children. According to Glidden, the remains of more than 3,000 people were discovered on the island. Most of them were tall, which was not typical for the Indians. In 1913, German-born physician A. Fürstenen discovered an 8-foot skeleton in Avalon Bay, along with artifacts including a stone with symbols. But when trying to extract it, the skeleton collapsed, leaving only part of the bones. The press actively responded to such reports. The Ogden Standard-Examiner newspaper wrote about the Glidden's findings in 1929, claiming the existence of an ancient toll race on Catalina. In addition, it was said that on the nearby island of Santa Rosa, skeletons with double rows of teeth and 6 fingers and toes were discovered in 1959. Fürstenant also heard legends about an ancient race of giants on Catalina who lived before the arrival of Europeans. However, Glidden's sensational findings on Santa Catalina remain in question for scientists from around the world. Most scientists believe that he was looking for funding for his research, and rumors said that the skeletons in his museum were only high-quality fakes. According to some sources, part of the giant skeletons was sent to the University of California and the Smithsonian Institution, where they disappeared into secret storage facilities. Archival photos allegedly depicting these skeletons are controversial. There is an opinion that they are fake, but researcher Al Marzulli claims their authenticity, noting the presence of a 6th finger on one of the hands. In 1962, sensing impending death, Glidden sold his collection for just $5,000. He passed away in 1966. 1957. Today, the question of who Ralph Glidden was, a master of hoaxes or the discoverer of mysterious civilization, remains open. Unfortunately, no convincing scientific evidence has been found for the existence of giants on Earth along with humanity. Fragment of the most ancient book. Teresa Zamet Lupi, a restorer at the University of Graz, examined a papyrus dated to the 3rd century BC and found traces of binding on it. Just think, she was holding in her hands a page of a book that is over 2,000 years old. This unique fragment was discovered in 1902 next to the mummy, and this discovery could rewrite the entire history of books because it is 400 years older than the oldest books known to us. To date, the oldest books are believed to have been produced between 150 and 250 AD, and some can be seen in the British Library in London and the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin. Scientists are sure that similar relics may be hidden in other museums, but no one has yet discovered them. After all, papyrus was a fairly accessible material for writing, and it was used very actively. This stunning fragment, measuring about 15 by 25 centimeters, was found in the Egyptian necropolis of Hebe. It is part of a collection of 52 papyri, and now we have a unique opportunity to learn the story behind every symbol on these ancient pages. Strange lawn stone. In the history of archaeology, discoveries occur that are made not only by scientists but also by ordinary people, often completely unexpectedly. Michigan farmer James Bristol stumbled upon an archaeological sensation when he decided to lay a gas pipeline through his range. When James started digging, he did not expect any surprises since the soil here was fertile and without stones. But soon the excavator stumbled upon something. Fearing damage to his rental car, the farmer stopped and decided to inspect the obstacle with a shovel. It turned out that it was not a stone, but something smooth and hard. Digging by hand, James soon realized that there was a huge bone in front of him. He called neighbors for help, and soon several more large bones were discovered. At first, no one could say for sure which animal they belonged to. A few hours later, amateur archaeologists dug to the place where the bones were connected into one large skull with tusks. Initially, farmers assumed it was an elephant, but to be sure, they called real scientists from the University of Michigan. Professor Fisher, having arrived at the place, immediately established that these were the remains of a mammoth and in excellent condition. He wanted to take the bones for study, but James refused to give them up, citing laws that allowed the landowner to dispose of the find at his own discretion. As a result, the farmer displayed the remains in his store, attracting tourists and scientists from all over the country and additionally selling his products. Found the treasure using grandfather's old map. Two brothers from Germany found a treasure in Lubomierz, Poland, using a map drawn by their grandfather in 1952. They went on vacation to Poland, and one of their destinations was Lubomierz, where their grandfather, who worked as a gardener, buried valuables before leaving. A map found in the family archive helped them find the place described by a relative. Arriving in Lubomierz, the brothers asked local residents for a shovel for excavation, but their actions seemed suspicious, and a local resident reported them to the police. Excavations were temporarily stopped until the brothers received the necessary permits. After the formalities were settled, archaeologists joined the excavations. Grandfather's map turned out to be not just a map, but a ladder indicating the location of the treasure burial. At the designated location, the brothers found two antique jugs containing valuable finds, including watches, jewelry, 19th century coins, and a cigarette case from 1935. Apparently, these items were war trophies. The discovered artifacts were sent for examination to assess their historical significance. If they prove valuable, they can be legally seized and given to a museum. Otherwise, the treasures will be returned to the brothers. The first calculator from the 17th century. Did you know that Blaise Pascal was not only a brilliant mathematician, but also invented amazing things? Here is one of his stories that will show you how talent and adventurism can work together to create something unique. In the 17th century, Pascal embodied his idea in the form of the first arithmetic adding machine, which was called Pascaline. It was already the second calculating machine, but the first one that was actually built and used. So how did it all start? Blaise Pascal was inspired by his father, who worked with taxes and faced financial problems and charges of treason. Then the young Pascal came up with the idea to create a mechanism that would facilitate the calculation of tax collections. After all, then everyone did the calculations on the counting boards. In 1642, when Blaise was 19 years old, he took on the project. A couple of years later, and after much revision and research, he created a machine that looked like a shoebox with dials on top, gears and windows to display calculations. Unfortunately, Pascaline could only add numbers since the gears could only rotate in one direction. But using a clever 9's complement math trick allowed to subtract numbers. Although the device was not simple inside, the Pascaline caused delight among people since this level of automatism had not existed until then. Blaise Pascal later made about 50 of these machines and sold about 20 of them. The introduction of these machines was hampered by their high costs and complexity of production. Plus, France only in 1799 switched to the metric system in monetary calculations. So, thanks to the courage and ingenuity of Blaise, the Pascalina was created, a calculating machine that greatly facilitated calculations and became the forerunner of modern calculators. As you can see, sometimes unusual ideas and adventurism can lead to the discovery and creation of unique things that change the world. Remember this story the next time you hear about some weird invention, because it could be something truly great. Obsidian mirror. Ancient civilizations in Mexico used obsidian mirrors, or tezcatls, as divination tools. Looking into the depth of the mirror, the sorcerers were transported to the world of gods and ancestors. Obsidian mirrors can be seen as a metaphor for the images of ancient Mexican monuments. They reflect not only the object, but also the person looking. The main accessory of the supreme Aztec god Tezcatlipoca is an obsidian mirror. His name translates to smoke and mirror. He is often depicted with a mirror on his chest, wearing jewelry, or in place of his right leg. Tezcatlipoca was the ruler of the night and its creatures, primarily the jaguar, which, according to beliefs, could move between the earthly and underground worlds. In 1969, American artist Robert Smithson visited Mayan ruins, following the path of writer John Lloyd Stephens. Despite traveling through Mayan territory, Smithson claimed to embody Tezcatlipoca. This experience inspired him to create a piece of art in which he used mirrors to illustrate time travel. In the early 20th century in Mexico City, Augustus Genin, a Mexican collector of French origin, amassed an extensive collection of pre-Columbian artifacts. Ancient Mexican mirrors from his collection survive to this day in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes they were reused, inserted into Christian crosses, or as symbols of vanity. General's gold jewelry. In 2020, a huge trove of gold artifacts was found in Vindelev, Denmark, dating back to pre-Viking age migrations. The finds included 23 gold objects, including 13 5th century bracteates, gold fittings possibly from weapons, and 4 4th century Roman medallions. Particularly noteworthy is the runic inscribed bracteate, the largest ever found containing a reference to Odin, a key figure in Norse mythology. Research into these medallions has shed light on possible cultural and social connections between Vindelev and other regions of Europe. It is assumed that the medallions could serve as wedding ransoms or high gifts in elite circles. These gold medallions were probably worn by women as pendants, indicating the high status of their owner, who carried weight both locally and internationally. The peculiarity of these medallions is that they were given to prominent Roman figures such as senators and generals, and their presence in Vindelev, far from the Roman Empire, underscores the importance of this find. Tried to hide it from the government. During the construction of a house in the village of Mohammedpur Baganki, Haryana, India, ancient bronze idols dating back about 400 years were found. The statues depicting the Hindu deities Vishnu and Mata Lakshmi are distinguished by exquisite carvings and designs. The owner of the site tried to hide the discovery by offering a builder who discovered the artifacts money for silence. However, the builder contacted the police, and thus the authorities learned about the existence of the idols. Local residents, regarding the idols as a divine blessing, expressed a desire to build a temple on the site, but the Department of Archaeology refused, saying that the artifacts were the property of the state and should be preserved for study and subsequent storage in a museum. The statues are currently undergoing scientific analysis to determine their exact age and history. Previously, scientists confirmed that the idols are about 400 years old. Researchers are also looking for inscriptions or marks on the idols that could shed light on their origins. 2,000-year-old cemetery in Siberia. In Krasnoyarsk, Russia, workers were raking a mound and found old skeletons. It turned out that it was not just a hill, but a barrow, and there was a burial chamber underground. Approximate age of human remains is 2,000 years, and the most interesting thing is that they belong to a previously unknown culture. According to archaeologists, the culture was similar to the Scythians, whose numerous remains were found in the Crimea. Next to the skeletons, archaeologists found ritual weapons and artifacts. Based on these objects, it was possible to understand that the burial does not belong to the Taga culture. There were no such artifacts in the culture of these people. Perhaps it was some kind of people from the Scythian group. Most of all, there were similarities only with them. A few years ago, one interesting burial was already found in Siberia, which is also about 2,000 years old. In Astpelui, then they found the burial of 5 dogs. They were buried with honors. This indicates that dogs for people in ancient times were not just pets. Not every person was buried in the place allotted for this, and even more so with expensive jewelry. While archaeologists in Siberia are trying to study ancient burials, scientists on the other side of the world have managed to solve an ancient grammatical puzzle. The most luxurious pirate port. Port Royal, known as the worst city on earth, was once the wealthiest port in the Caribbean. This place was considered a center of luxury and debauchery, where the abundance of alcohol, gambling, and entertainment with women attracted pirates and adventurers from all over the world. However, a sudden earthquake on June 7, 1692 put an end to this splendor when 2/3 of the city went underwater, taking with it many lives. Port Royal's history began with the Taino people who used the area for fishing until the Spanish took control of the region. However, Port Royal's true potential was only realized after the British conquered Jamaica in 1654. They built Fort Cromwell, which was later renamed Fort Charles, and began using Port Royal as a strategic base for privateering operations under Henry Morgan. This quickly turned the city into the region's largest trading port. The disaster of 1692 was a tragic and sudden end to Port Royal's prosperity. The earthquake and subsequent tsunami destroyed most of the city in a matter of minutes, killing 1,500 people and seriously injuring another 3,000. Despite this, the city, which disappeared under the waters, remains one of the most significant archaeological sites. Since the 1950s, archaeologists have discovered many well-preserved artifacts, including everyday objects and even human remains. One of the finds, a pocket watch, made it possible to accurately establish the time of the disaster, 1143. Legend of the Flying Creature. In 1890, residents of Tombstone, Arizona, witnessed an unusual and mysterious event. During those times, a giant flying creature was seen and even photographed that resembled a pterodactyl, an ancient flying reptile that lived millions of years ago. The photo, however, was never discovered, despite extensive searches and numerous attempts to find it or confirm the authenticity of the event. This incident attracted the attention of not only the public but also scientists, as well as lovers of paranormal phenomena and cryptozoology. The story of the flying creature in Tombstone fits into the larger context of the myth of Thunderbird, a powerful creature from Native American mythology. Depicted as a huge bird capable of causing thunder and lightning, the Thunderbird is an important figure in the culture of many tribes and is often associated with ancient cryptid creatures supposedly seen by people during various historical periods. Since then, scientists and researchers have continued to debate the authenticity and possible explanations for this phenomena. Some speculated it could be a real animal that accidentally ended up in the region, perhaps the last surviving member of an extinct species. Others believe this story is nothing more than a myth or legend, perhaps even a clever invention or exaggeration of real events. Research continues, and interest in this story is not limited only to the scientific community. Lovers of mysteries and secrets of the past are also actively involved in discussions and searches for any information that could shed light on this wonderful story of the Old West. What creatures and animals inhabited our planet hundreds and thousands of years ago? What artifacts confirm human contact with an alien civilization? Where did people get mysterious technologies in the past? And how were majestic buildings built? I answered these questions in my previous videos. Spicy artifact. In the Khangai Mountains in northern Mongolia, archaeologists have discovered a real sensation, a stone decoration in the form of a human phallus. Yes, you heard it right. The small curved piece of graphite 4.2 centimeters long, is the oldest known representation of a person taking into account gender characteristics. Believe it or not, its age is estimated to be between 42,400 and 41,900 years old, so it falls on the Upper Paleolithic. Such phallic pendants are something new in Paleolithic history. They say that early hunter-gatherers already used sexual characteristics as symbols. On the pendant, you can see the recesses, which according to scientists resemble the male genital organ. The most interesting thing is that the back of the pendant is smooth, while the front is not. It looks like the pendant was worn around the neck. The surface of the pendant is slightly worn, suggesting that it has been passed down from generation to generation. The oldest diamond in the world. Now I will tell you again about precious stones, only very ancient ones. The story will not just be about a diamond, but about the oldest diamond on Earth. Just like in movies or treasure books, isn't it? An international team of scientists discovered this unique stone in Russia at the Udachная diamond deposit, which translates as lucky. Here the name itself speaks of greater luck for the miners. Measuring only 0.3 millimeters, this diamond is smaller than the head of a pin. It lived a very long life, and scientists were able to determine its age using sophisticated methods that sound like real magic. Isotope dating. Scientists thought that the diamond was formed deep underground at a depth of about 140 kilometers. It was very hot there, about 900 degrees Celsius, and the pressure was huge, 37,000 times more than on the Earth's surface. A diamond is 3.7 billion years old. But the most amazing thing is that this diamond deposit is located 20 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, very close to the place where polar bears live. It was here in 1955 that the Soviet geologist Vladimir Shukin discovered this lucky pipe, and then a whole city was built here for diamond mining. And in this pipe, huge diamonds were found, one of which was named after the great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin. The Stone Age may turn out to be wooden. Researchers believe that human ancestors knew how to process wood 3 million years ago. In 1836, Danish archaeologist Christian Jørgensen Thomsen proposed a chronology from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age and Iron Ages, which became the basis of archaeology. However, archaeologist Thomas Terberger is ready to rewrite history and believes that the Stone Age can be replaced by the Wooden Age. He suggests that wooden tools last as long as stone ones, that is, 2.5 or 3 million years. It's just that the wood decomposes faster. Primitive stone tools are characteristic of the lower Paleolithic, but wood has been found in only 10 of the thousands of archaeological sites from that era. Terberger led a study of wooden objects found in peat in a coal mine near Schöningen in Germany from 1994 to 2008. Among the artifacts were spears and throwing sticks dating from the end of the warm interglacial period 300,000 years ago. These discoveries upended the idea of human ancestors who were previously considered simple scavengers. People who lived before Homo sapiens created tools and hunting weapons, cooperated to hunt, and knew how to butcher game. 3D microscopy and micro-CT scanners found signs of wear on 187 pieces of wood. Until now, it was believed that only modern people were involved in wood processing. Among the finds were sticks, kitchen utensils, and household tools made of spruce, pine, and larch. The wood was cut down on a mountain 2-3 kilometers from the discovery site. The analysis showed that Stone Age people carefully processed wood, following a certain order, removing branches, sharpening tips, hardening, and fire. Wooden tools turned out to be more complex than stone ones. An ancient toy for adults. The artifact, which is already more than 2,000 years old, was found in Great Britain back in 1992. Initially, archaeologists assumed that this wooden object was used as a sewing tool. However, further studies suggested that it could be an ancient sexual device. Most scientists agree that the wooden object found is in the shape of a phallus. The uniqueness of this artifact is that it has not changed its shape and method of use even after thousands of years. And the most interesting thing is that its shape will not change in the future for obvious reasons. However, there are several versions regarding the use of this artifact as a sex toy. Based on Roman images, it is known that they had dildos, but they rarely came down to us because they were most often made from organic materials. Also, some archaeologists suggest that slave owners could use such an object to inflict pain and demonstrate power over slaves. Others believe it could have been a good luck charm. Indeed, in ancient times, amulets of this shape were very common. As a final option, it could be used as a mortar for grinding, for mixing spices and other materials used for culinary or medicinal purposes. Ancient children's shoes. In the Austrian village of Dernbach, archaeologists made an amazing discovery. They managed to find ancient leather children's shoes with fully preserved laces. After asserting their style and design, scientists determined that the shoes dated back to the 2nd century AD, an era known as the Iron Age. According to the German Mining Museum Bochum and the Leibniz Georesource Research Museum, the size of the found artifact corresponds to the size 30 of the modern European system. The uniqueness of this find is in its preservation. The main reason for such an ideal condition of ancient shoes is salt. The village of Dernberg has long been famous for its salt mines, and salt is excellent at preserving organic materials. Organic objects usually degrade over time, but thanks to the unique conditions of preservation, ancient textile remains and even excrement found in the area are giving scientists the opportunity to learn more about the lives of Iron Age people. Delivery of messages from the afterlife. Since ancient times, humanity has sought to find a way to communicate with the living who have departed from the world, which has led to the development of many methods and practices. Among them, charlatans inevitably arose, exploiting the grief of those who had lost loved ones. However, along with this, there were those who approached the issue of communication with the other world with pragmatism and rationalism. One such person was William Thomas Stead, a Victorian journalist who delved into spiritualism in London in the 1980s. Stead claimed to have psychic abilities and could receive messages from the dead through so-called automatic writing. Allegedly, his hand is capable of writing a message from the other world. One of his main interlocutors was Julia Ames, an American journalist who died in 1891. Before her death, Julia agreed with her friend Ellen that she would try to contact her from the afterlife. Ellen claimed that she saw Julia at home next to her bed but did not hear her words. This caused Ellen to turn to Stead for help, and he offered to use his skills to convey her messages through automatic writing. As a result, Stead wrote the book After Death, or Letters from Julia, in which he published messages allegedly received from Julia. They described her experiences in the afterlife and gave the idea that the continuation of existence after death is perceived as something natural and continuous, where the soul leaves the physical body but retains its consciousness and self-awareness. After Stead's death on the Titanic in 1912, his daughter Estella claimed that a family friend, Woodman, also began receiving messages from her father via automatic letter. Woodman allegedly conveyed Stead's impressions of his post-death experiences, describing his experience of death as a strange journey to a new place filled with light and peace. These reports suggest that automatic writing may not only be the product of trance or unconscious activity, but also a real way of communicating with another dimension. Do you think people after death can somehow transfer at least some information to us in the world of the living? Civilization Rescue Machine. Archaeologists from the British Museum have made a surprising discovery in the Iraqi city of Gursu, which they called the advanced technology of the ancient Sumerians. It turns out that the structure, previously thought to be a temple, is actually a water canal built more than 4,000 years ago. Modern researchers have found that this canal was created by the Sumerians as a means of combating drought. Archaeologists describe this ancient structure as a kind of trench for delivering water to the fields. However, this was not just an irrigation structure, but a complex system that researchers call a drought-fighting machine. Architect and ecologist Ibru Turan notes the uniqueness of the find, as such technologies were considered possible only in the 18th century. This design was of great importance as a way to combat the water crisis of the time. The canal structure consisted of two symmetrical mud brick structures. Their length was about 40 meters, width 10 meters, and the walls reached a height of 3.5 meters. The discovered device was located on a 19-kilometer-long canal that crossed a body of water, which also allows it to be considered the oldest known bridge in the world. Ancient bakery in Armenia. I will tell you about an amazing discovery which is like from a fairy tale. Imagine an old bakery, a place where they bake delicious rolls and bread. Now imagine that this bakery is not on the corner of your street, but in Armenia. And it is not 10, not 50, or even 100 years old. It is 3,000 years old. Do you believe that bags of flour that were hidden in the ground are still preserved in it? Archaeologists have found this bakery in Matsamor, Armenia, in the remains of a huge building that once housed ovens that unfortunately burned down in a fire. But the most amazing thing thing is that there were still bags of flour. They looked like ash stains, but the scientists tested them and now they are sure that this is flour. At first, the building was a public place, but then ovens were placed there and it became a bakery where people baked bread from wheat flour. Later, there was a fire and the building collapsed. Only the stone bases of the columns and charred fragments of wooden beams and roof sheathing remained. It is interesting that the flour in those days was used for divinatory purposes. Perhaps this bakery had some special meaning for the people of that time. This is still a mystery, but we hope that scientists will be able to solve it too. So guys, the next time you eat freshly baked bread, remember that bakeries were an important part of the life of our ancestors already 3,000 years ago. Britain will return their spirits to Aboriginal descendants. After 7 years of effort, the Australian Aborigines achieved the return of unique wooden copies captured more than 250 years ago by the detachment of the famous navigator James Cook. These artifacts were brought to England as trophies after the first European encounter with the indigenous people in 1770 at Botany Bay, near modern-day Sydney. The spears, which belonged to the Aboriginal Gwigala clan, were kept for many years in Trinity College, Cambridge University, and then transported to the Cambridge Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. Cook initially took 40 copies to England, but only 4 survive to this day. These artifacts have now been returned and will be kept in an Australian museum close to where the original owners once lived. Recently, many countries, including Germany and the Netherlands, have begun to return cultural property taken away during colonialism. For example, Benin bronze was returned to Nigeria, and valuable jewelry was returned to Sri Lanka and Bali. However, the UK continues to experience difficulties in returning its most significant artifacts. Greece, for example, has been trying for decades to return the Parthenon marbles, which are in the British Museum. Finally, after hundreds of years, all the ancient artifacts continue to return to their homeland, and in the near future, we will see empty European museums. Treasure in an ancient grave. Swedish archaeologists recently made a unique discovery during excavations on the island of Vicenzo. A real treasure was found in an ancient church grave from the 12th century. The grave of a young man who was between 20 and 25 years old at the time of his death contained coins minted between 1150 and 1180. A total of 170 silver bracteates, thin metal plates used as jewelry, were found. This discovery is of great importance for Swedish historians. The find is special in particular because there are a few similar finds from that period, and some coins were completely unknown before. Archaeologists were surprised that the coins were found in a Christian grave, as burial with treasure was not a common practice among early medieval Christians. This is a sensational discovery that will change the history of early medieval coins in Gotland and shed light on a period about which we know almost nothing. Traces of the gods in the Temple of Andara. In northern Syria, in the arid lands, there is a unique archaeological site of Andara, a complex of buildings around a majestic central temple which in its characteristics has no analogues. One of its remarkable features is the giant footprints on the threshold, which are up to 1 meter long, clearly indicating their non-human origin. According to local residents, the traces were left by a deity and the temple resembles the biblical description of the Temple of Solomon. Temple dating from the Iron Age of the Syro-Hittite kingdoms, which arose after the collapse of the Hittite Empire around 1180 BC and existed until 700 BC, was opened in 1955. Archaeological excavations have made it possible to study its structure and decoration in more detail. The temple rises on an embankment and is surrounded by a gallery. Its foundation is made up of massive basalt blocks. The walls are decorated with intricate carvings depicting geometric patterns and mythical animals, demonstrating the great skill of its creators. The entrance is guarded by lions and sphinxes carved from stone. However, it has not yet been established to whom exactly the temple was dedicated. There is an assumption that it could be dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, but there is no exact data. Giant human footprints not only confirm the structure's connection with ancient myths and deities, but also emphasize its cultural, religious, and mystical significance. However, in 2018, a huge part of this temple was destroyed by airstrikes. Ancient house in the Sinai Desert. In Egypt, archaeologists have discovered a 3,500-year-old structure in the Sinai Desert, identified as a royal recreation area. The ruins of this fortified area were found at the archaeological site of Tel Habwa. The palace, intended for the rest of the pharaoh and his entourage, was built of mud brick. It was part of the fortified complexes built near Eastern Gate of Egypt to house troops. Dating showed that the palace was built during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, known for his military campaigns. The kings of ancient Egypt regularly made military expeditions to the eastern Mediterranean. The Sinai Desert was one of the routes of the Egyptian troops. The pharaoh's rest house was a strategic object, the center of the fortress, where the ruler and his army rested. Here, the warriors recuperated and replenished supplies before their campaigns. Changes in human DNA. Some scientists are discussing the possibility that alien microbes could interfere with human DNA, causing significant changes to our genetic code. This hypothesis suggests that such microorganisms may not only exist, but also influence human evolution, making us more like them. In support of this idea, researchers point to a number of observed changes in the human population, such as decreased testosterone levels and decreased sperm counts in men. These trends can be interpreted as signs of evolutionary changes possibly caused by external influences, including environmental factors or even the influence of extraterrestrial agents. Decreased testosterone levels and sperm count can have serious consequences for reproductive health and population demographics, making this topic important from both a scientific and social perspective. Giants in Sardinia. On Sardinia, a mysterious island in the Mediterranean Sea, archaeologists have discovered unique artifacts known as the Giants of Monte Prama. These statues amaze with their size and craftsmanship, and their name emphasizes their exceptional size. According to some studies, these figures could be created based on legends about ancient giants who inhabited the island thousands of years ago. These statues are evidence of the high level of culture that existed in Sardinia in antiquity and possibly reflect the myths and religious beliefs of the time. The giants from Monte Prama are stone figures that depict full-length people, often armed and dressed in traditional armor of the era. Some theories suggest that the figures could have been created in honor of particularly significant persons or heroes of those times, perhaps even real-life giants. This idea is fueled by local legends and traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation by the inhabitants of Sardinia. Thus, the statues Giants of Monte Prama leave many questions about their origin, purpose, and those whom they were supposed to depict. The most common opinion about their origin is of course alien. According to some scientists, these statues are complete copies of guests from outer space. Ancient people wanted to perpetuate their image on Earth as a sign of some kind of gratitude. Allegedly, thousands of years ago, some technologies and knowledge were obtained from these characters. Of course, we cannot confirm or deny this, so let's move on. 2 sensations on one stone. In the village of Yelabuga in Russia, an amazing archaeological discovery took place. A basalt boulder with petroglyphs reminiscent of the famous Sikachi-Alyan rock paintings was found. An image of a praying mantis was also found on this stone, which is rare for this region. An expedition of scientists from Moscow arrived in the region to study the find. Initially, archaeologists were skeptical about the report of petroglyphs, but on the spot they confirmed the authenticity of the artifact. Various figures are visualized on the stone, including a rare image of a praying mantis, which is unique in the whole world. Scientists continue to study this area, quadcopters to record coordinates and create a digital map of petroglyphs. The main question that remains open is the origin of the boulder with such unique patterns. There are hypotheses that the stone could have arrived with ice drift or been brought in another way. 3D models made from the drawings will allow archaeologists to present to the public exact copies of the Yelabuga finds, confirming their importance and uniqueness. This find not only confirms the rich history of the region, but also opens up new perspectives for the study of ancient civilizations. 12 painted tombs of the grandson of Genghis Khan. Imagine that you are a brave archaeologist and you have just made an amazing find in the eastern part of China in the Shandong province. Your team has discovered as many as 12 ancient tombs decorated with breathtaking paintings and carvings. Their age is about 700 years. These tombs are the real treasures of the Yuan Dynasty, founded by the Mongol Khan Kublai Khan, who was the grandson of the great conqueror Genghis Khan. It is important to note that this find has become one of the most significant for this part of China. According to an inscription found in the burial complex, the tombs belonged to the Goel family, but the most surprising thing was discovered by archaeologists in one of the tombs where there were two burial chambers. There, magnificent paintings and frescoes made of carved bricks awaited them. These designs were hand-carved with chisels and wooden hammers. Until now, on these frescoes you can see herons and tree branches, symbols of good luck in Chinese culture. But that is not all. More than 60 items were found in the tombs, including earthenware and porcelain dishes, bronze mirrors, copper coins, and other valuable artifacts. This will give scientists new insights into the culture and production of porcelain during the Yuan Dynasty. Bronze Age wooden well. Archaeologists recently discovered a well-preserved Bronze Age wooden well in Oxfordshire, England. The well was found during the construction of Benson Relief Road. John Boothroyd, senior project manager, said they expected to find a regular hole, but came across a preserved wooden post driven vertically into the ground. Further excavations revealed that the pillars were part of a wooden well. The moist soil contributed to the excellent preservation of the tree. Archaeologists digitally documented the structure and carefully dismantled it for transport to Oxfordshire Museum. Wood samples were sent for analysis to determine its type. In addition to the well, archaeologists found flint, animal bones, and pottery fragments indicating their use for storage and waste. Despite difficult conditions, the team successfully fixed the well. Soil samples will help create a more complete picture of the surrounding landscape and the scale of the settlement. The oldest human footprints in Germany. Imagine a huge lake surrounded by sparse birches and pines and dense thickets of grass on the shore. This is Germany, only about 300,000 years ago. Giant elephants, rhinos, and other majestic creatures of that time came here to drink water. And on the shore of this lake, exactly where the city of Schöningen is now located, the Heidelberg people, our ancient ancestors, left their traces. Scientists accidentally found footprints imprinted on soft silt and then petrified. And this is simply amazing because these traces were left by an adult, a teenager, and even a child. Maybe it was a family outing or someone playing on the beach, we can only guess. Who were these Heidelberg people? They lived in Europe and Africa about 130,000 years ago and are considered our distant ancestors, the direct predecessors of the Neanderthals. They chose places to live near lakes or rivers where you could always find something tasty, fruits, berries, mushrooms, and much more. But people were not the only ones who left traces in Schöningen. They also found paw prints of large land animals of that time, extinct species of elephants, and even traces of a rhinoceros. By the way, such prints of rhinoceros were found in Europe for the first time. Pass for the dead. Archaeologists from the University of Aberdeen have discovered hundreds of previously unknown prehistoric sites in Ireland, including 5 Stone Age structures used to mark the path of the dead to the afterlife. These discoveries were made in County Wicklow, where the use of lidar allowed detailed 3D models of the landscape to be created. The area where the research was carried out was inhabited from the early Neolithic to the late Bronze Age. Scientists have discovered 5 long, narrow structures called cursuses, ranging from 150 to 400 meters in length, which are considered rare in Ireland. These structures served as paths for the dead, showing souls the path to the afterlife. Interestingly, 4 of the 5 cursuses are oriented according to the cyclic movement of the sun, 2 of which indicate sunrise on the summer solstice and the other 2 on the autumn equinox. 3 curses are located next to the funerary complexes, which further supports the theory about their role in funeral processions and the path of souls to their ancestors. These prehistoric sites remain among the most mysterious in Ireland and the UK, as no artifacts have been found near them to reveal more about their function. Leather shoes from the tomb. Chinese archaeologists are restoring 1,400-year-old leather shoes found in the Astana tombs, capital of the ancient kingdom of Gyeongsang. German experts are helping with the restoration. Finding such old leather or textiles is rare, as they quickly decompose when exposed to air. The shoes, recovered from an archive of objects excavated since the 1950s, are 24 centimeters long and consist of upper, shaft, and sole pieces sewn from goat skin with animal sinew. Archaeologists have been exploring the tombs for more than a century. Since the 1950s, 456 tombs have been studied in 14 excavations, yielding some 10,000 valuable relics. The hot, dry climate preserved many items that would otherwise have been destroyed, including 300 leather items. Ancient shoes have been found in the other archaeological sites around the world. For example, hundreds of shoes or moccasins were found in a cave in Utah that was inhabited about 850 years ago. On the shores of the Great Salt Lake, 207 moccasins made from animal skins, mostly children's, were found. The soles of the shoes were made of full buffalo leather, lined with fur and stitched at the heel, characteristic of the Canadian subarctic style. The presence of so many children's shoes indicates a thriving population despite people leaving the region due to drought. These shoes were created by the promontory culture. In May 2014, the world's oldest pair of trousers was discovered in China. Archaeologists have found the remains of 2 nomads and 3,000-year-old patterned trousers in western China, supporting the theory that the switch from tunics to trousers was a practical decision for horsemen. It is impossible to say exactly when humans began making clothing due to the rapid decomposition of fabrics, but estimates range from 100 to 500,000 years ago. The first clothes were made from skins, herbs, leaves, bones, and shells. The oldest dyed fibers were found in a cave in Georgia and are 36,000 years old. Underground city. The Jersin Cave, located in Saudi Arabia, is an important archaeological site demonstrating the important role of lava tubes in the lives of our ancestors. This 1.5-kilometer lava tunnel, which arose as a result of volcanic activity, served as a refuge for people for 7,000 years. An international team of archaeologists has discovered numerous objects here that tell about the life of the ancients. Fragments of clothing, processed wood, remains of stone buildings, and tools, presumably used for household purposes, were found. Archaeologists also came across animal bones, which could be either food waste or part of burials. A study of the remains shows that the diet of the cave inhabitants was rich in protein, but over time, the proportion of plant food from nearby oases increased. The caves were also used for pastoralists as temporary shelter during transitions between oases, facilitating trade. This hypothesis is confirmed by rock paintings depicting livestock. History of Egyptian princes. The discoverer of Australia was the Dutchman Willem Jansson in 1606. However, scientific evidence from the early 20th century presented an unexpected twist. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs were discovered in Australia. These finds indicated the Egyptians were on the green continent 5,000 years before the Europeans. The hieroglyphs were found in the Carrion archaeological site on the east coast of Australia, where they had long been known to local Aboriginal people. These glyphs, called the Gosford glyphs, contain texts that describe the expedition of the ancient Egyptians. These texts speak of the arrival on the Australian shores and the tragic fate of the prince who led the expedition, who died from a snake bite. After his death, according to ancient customs, the body was mummified and buried in a cave. Despite the seeming improbability of such a journey, there are arguments in favor of the possibility of long-distance travel by the Egyptians. Thor Heyerdahl successfully crossed the Atlantic in the papyrus boat Ra-2, demonstrating that papyrus boats could withstand long voyages. Critics point out that the style of the glyphs does not correspond to classical Egyptian hieroglyphs, but this may be explained by their creation not by professional scribes, but by sailors. The authenticity of the Gosford glyphs has been confirmed by some renowned Egyptologists. Medieval smartphone app. Did you know that the predecessor to modern smartphone apps was invented in the Middle Ages? It was a Volvo, an interactive device made of paper that performed many functions, from calculations of celestial bodies to medical diagnostics and navigation at sea. A Volvo consisted of one or more rotating paper discs printed with data that the user could combine to perform calculations or find answers. This invention was similar to the astrolabe, an ancient instrument for observing the positions of the stars. The first Volvo were created by Ramon Lull of Majorca, a great philosopher and scientist of the 13th and 14th centuries. Lull called them volvali, and led after the Latin word volvere, meaning to rotate. He used the subject to resolve religious disputes by unifying different elements of thought and language through complex geometric figures. Volvali were also used to tell time at night, which was important for the correct administration of drugs. In the Middle Ages, volvali were often associated with magic and fortune-telling, but over time, they became a valuable tool for the accumulation and generation of knowledge. Today, volvali can be found for educational purposes, demonstrating the historical roots of the principles of calculation and visualization. Recipe from the grave. Czech scientists have recreated Celtic beer based on research of pollen from an ancient Celtic burial in Moravia. Beer has deep roots, with its first traces going back to the Middle East, where breweries emerged around 5,500 years ago. However, its full history still remains a mystery. Excavations carried out in 2020 and 2021 have opened new horizons in the understanding of ancient cultures, revealing the life and traditions of pre-Celtic people. Modern analyses of pollen found at the site have revealed traces of millets and other herbs used by the Celts to create beer. Scientists speculate that some ingredients, such as clove, may have served as sweeteners for the drink, pointing to complex taste preference and ancient technology. The created beer, Tauri Ale, has a unique taste, different from modern varieties, emphasizing the role of various herbs and spices in its production. The lack of hops is an interesting aspect of the beer's flavor profile, making it similar to medieval recipes. Being one of humanity's oldest drinks, continues to connect people across cultures and centuries. Teeth decorated with precious stones. Ancient civilizations surprised modern scientists with their techniques and traditions. One of these amazing traditions was the decoration of teeth among the Mayans. This phenomena, discovered by archaeologists in Mexico, testifies to the high level of development of the art of dentistry and what fashion trends were at that time. Interestingly, such jewelry was not just a symbol of higher status or wealth, but rather a fashion accessory. This suggests that the Maya had a well-developed social hierarchy and a culture of attention to one's body and appearance. However, gold and precious stones on the teeth were not the only decoration. Archaeologists also discovered teeth with notches and grooves, which indicates complex decorative techniques. Many discoveries made in Mexico have allowed scientists to learn more about the life and traditions of the ancient Mayans. And although many aspects of their culture still remain a mystery, each new discovery helps to paint a more complete picture of this amazing civilization. Neolithic farmer skeleton. A unique discovery happened right in the middle of a city in Poland. This is a story that will affect you because it affects the story of the person themselves. Slomniki, a small town in Malopolska Voivodeship, Poland, became the site of an amazing discovery. Imagine you are renovating a city square and suddenly you find a complete human skeleton. But it's not just a skeleton. This skeleton is about 7,000 years old. And what's the most wonderful thing? The skeleton was found in perfect condition, and pieces of ancient pottery were found next to it. They appear to have belonged to a culture known as the linear culture. You may be asking how it could be that the skeleton was left in such excellent condition. It was buried in very peculiar soil, which helped preserve it. Scientists want to conduct a special test called radiocarbon dating. This will help them find out exactly when that person lived. Now they don't even know who they were, but there are some assumptions. Scientists think that this man could be a Neolithic farmer who crossed the Carpathians and ended up in Poland. But what's really remarkable is that we still know so little about this ancient culture and their burial customs. That is why each such discovery is an opportunity to look into the past and learn more about those who lived before us. The history of the burial of an ancient Egyptian prince. In a cemetery in Middlebury, Vermont, there is an unusual grave that stands out from the rest. This is believed to be the burial place of the Egyptian prince Amun-Khepesh-Efa, who was born in 1881 BC during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and died at the age of 2.5 years. His father, Senwosed III, later became pharaoh and ruled during the 12th dynasty, famous for his military campaigns and the construction of the Sesostris Canal. The boy's mummy was likely taken from Egypt grave robbers during the Victorian era and eventually ended up in the collection of a 19th century American museum. Henry Sheldon, a collector and founder of the Vermont History Museum, acquired the mummy from Spanish sailors and stored it in his museum's attic due to its poor condition. After Sheldon's death in 1907, the mummy remained unclaimed until 1945, when museum director George Mead decided to cremate the decayed remains and bury them in the cemetery to avoid possible student vandalism. The tombstone is decorated with a Christian cross surrounded by the Egyptian symbols Ankh and Ba, symbolizing life and spirit. Oldest known human viruses. Researchers from the Federal University of Sao Paulo have discovered the oldest viruses in the bones of Neanderthals, which are more than 50,000 years old. Two Neanderthals whose remains were found in a cave in Russia have undergone DNA testing. The results show traces of papillomavirus, sexually transmitted, and adenovirus, which causes colds, as well as other viruses. Both Neanderthals were men. Experts have long speculated that viruses may have contributed to the extinction of Neanderthals. This discovery may confirm this theory. The study suggests that Neanderthals may have been infected by the same viruses as modern humans. It has also been shown that it is possible to identify fragments or viral genomes in archaeological samples. Adenoviruses can cause a variety of diseases, from the common cold to acute gastroenteritis. Papillomaviruses are known to be associated with cervical cancer. The team behind the discovery plans to synthesize these Jurassic Park viruses to compare them with their modern counterparts. The remains were found in the Chigurskaya cave in the Altai Mountains in Siberia. They belong to a group of 9 people found in 2022 who were related. Researchers were able to sequence the genome of Neanderthals and find that viral traces did not end up in the remains of animals or modern humans. Archaeologists emphasize that viruses were not the only reason for the extinction of Neanderthals, but could play a role in this process. In the last video, I talked about an artifact that 2,000 years ago, now and in the future, will have the same shape and method of use. Zombie grave. In the recently discovered burial site near Oppen in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany, archaeologists have discovered astonishing Bronze Age artifacts linked to ancient superstitions. The remains of a man were found in the grave, laid on his side, with his legs pressed under a heavy stone about a meter long and 50 centimeters wide. Thus, those who were involved in his burial tried to prevent his return to the world of the living. According to excavation director Uwe Moos, the man between 40 and 60 years old was positioned facing east, indicating cultural rituals of the time. Moos suggests that the deceased either suffered from a serious illness or was not respected among his own people. It is argued that the man may have been part of the bell beaker culture, which is characterized by a certain style of pottery. In those distant times, people sincerely believed in the existence of revenants, the dead striving to return to the world of the living. The means of dealing with them were varied, from piercing the bodies with spears to placing heavy stones on the bodies to prevent them from rising from the dead. An ancient helmet that caused terror in the enemy. The burial, which is about 2,500 years old, was discovered by archaeologists in Croatia. In an Illyrian burial, they found an iron helmet that was likely a votive offering or part of a cultic practice. The helmet was found in a mound at the archaeological site of Gomila. The mound dates back to the period between the 6th and 4th centuries BC. On the territory of Gomila, there are several mounds located near the village of Zakatorak on the Pelješac Peninsula next to the Adriatic Sea. Each mound has several graves, each containing several burials. According to ancient Greek records, the region was inhabited at that time by the Illyrians, who were divided into tribes and kingdoms. Gradually, the Romans conquered them. The found helmet has yet to be carefully examined, but according to scientists, it was preserved in perfect condition. The helmet was discovered in a stone structure separated from the graves in the mound. Archaeologists believe that the helmet was used in battle and could have a psychological effect on the enemy. Imagine a warrior with a shiny helmet on his head in the sun on the eve of battle. This moment alone can cause fear in the enemy. The Witch, the Dwarf, and the Magician's Pyramid. The ancient Mayan city of Uxmal, located on the Yucatan Peninsula, is a place where unique architecture and ancient mythology merge with otherworldly landscapes. One of the most mysterious structures here is the Pyramid of the Magician, a structure amazing in its shape and significance. This place is surrounded by magical legends, in particular the story of a dwarf and a witch who supposedly built the Magician's Pyramid. This legend exists only in oral retellings of local residents, since it is not recorded in ancient texts. Variations of the story are passed down from generation to generation. The story was first recorded in the 19th century by John Lloyd Stevens, an American explorer who published his observations in a book about his travels to the Yucatan. One day he heard the story from a local resident. According to legend, in the place where the pyramid now stands, there was once the hut of an old witch who wanted to have an heir. Using magic, she created a childlike creature from the egg. This baby quickly grew to the size of an adult, but remained the size of a dwarf. The witch was proud of him and dreamed that he would become a great great ruler. On her instructions, the dwarf challenged the local king to a duel. The test proposed by the king seemed impossible, but each time the dwarf coped with them, using the cunning and magic of his mother. For example, the king demanded that the dwarf build a house taller than all the buildings in the city in one night. By morning, a majestic pyramid rose on the side of the old hut. The final task was that the king and the dwarfs had to break wood over each other's heads. The witch prepared her son by placing a protective spell on his head. The king was unable to harm the dwarf, and he in turn took the king's life with his blow. So the dwarf became the new ruler of Uxmal. In some versions of this legend, the dwarf is the god Itama, who used magic to build the pyramid. These stories may have emerged as an attempt to explain the unusual shape and structure of the Pyramid of the Magician, which archaeologists believe took 3 centuries to build. Giants in Lovelock Cave. The Paiute tribe, Native Americans from Nevada, passed down stories from generation to generation about the white-skinned, red-haired giants known as Setika. These tales were first recorded in 1882 by Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins, daughter of a Paiute chief, in her book Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims. According to legends, these giants were cruel cannibals. Particularly significant is the story of the battle that took place at what is now known as Lovelock Cave. According to legend, at the beginning of the 20th century, archaeologists discovered thousands of artifacts in this cave, which gave rise to hypotheses about the reality of these legends. The Setika, or Thule Eaters, Thule is an aquatic plant, used rafts made from this plant to cross Lake Lahontan during the last ice age. The Paiutes are said to have eventually united against the Setika. Chasing the latter, they drove them into a cave. Refusing to come out and fight, the giants were destroyed by flaming arrows, which the tribes fired into the cave, causing a fire. Many of the giants died, the rest suffocated from the smoke. Lovelock Cave, also known as Bat Cave, is believed to be an ancient site that predates the appearance of humans on the continent. In 1886, local Indians told engineer John Thiriet about the legend, who was unable to begin excavations. Later, in 1911, miners extracting guano discovered artifacts prompting the first archaeological investigations. In 1924, a second excavation revealed some 10,000 objects, including dog decoys and unusually large sandals, confirming the stories of giants. Radiocarbon dating indicated that the cave was occupied at around 1,500 BC. The debate about the existence of giants continues, but many scientists believe that they were simply people of above average height. Finds made in the cave, including a stone with calendar markers and more, can now be seen in museums in Nevada and the Smithsonian Museum. Unicorn Horn. Let me introduce you to the life of the medieval unicorn. This creature, although mythical, faced the cruel attitude of humanity. People hunted unicorns for their magical horns, which were believed to have unique properties such as the ability to purify water and remove poison from food. Unicorns were believed to exist according to the testimony of many ancient scientists, including Aristotle and Ctesias, as well as great minds such as Leonardo da Vinci. In the Middle Ages, unicorns personified purity and wisdom. Their horns became a symbol of prosperity and could serve as an indicator of food poisoning among the aristocracy. But how do you find a unicorn horn in a world where these creatures don't exist? This question has been answered through the use of the horns of other animals, such as rhinoceroses or walruses. Most popular, however, are the tusks of narwhals, animals from the Arctic whose curled tusks have been mistaken for centuries for the horns of unicorns. Travelers and hunters secretly obtained these horns and sold them to Europeans as the horns of mythical creatures. Thus, merchants and great rulers like Lorenzo de' Medici and Queen Elizabeth I paid huge sums for these tusks, considering them symbols of power and protection. Even the Grand Inquisitor Thomas de Torquemada did not travel without a piece of such a horn, believing that it could save his life from heretics. With the development of science and the progress of research methods, belief in the miraculous properties of unicorn horns has subsided, and now they remain only exhibits in museums, a reminder of how legends and reality were intertwined in human history. Hussar armor in Poland. Hussars, light cavalry that originated in medieval Hungary, played a key role in numerous historical battles. They were used by the Habsburgs to defend against the Ottomans and participate in European conflicts. The Polish Hussars became especially famous, participating as the Battle of Orsha in 1514 and the Siege of Vienna in 1683. Recently, in the Polish village of Mikulowice, local resident Patrick Chmielewski, using a metal detector, discovered partially preserved hussar armor. The find includes several elements: elbow pads, shoulder pads, collarbone protection, and a helmet. The armor was found at a depth of 60 centimeters, and experts believe it dates back to the early 17th century. It is interesting that the armor found is devoid of decorative elements, which is typical for military equipment ordered not by magnates but by more modest nobles. This indicates that the armor was made in a local workshop to the individual order of a wealthy owner. Amulet from space. Turkish archaeologists have discovered a 4,700-year-old meteorite iron amulet. This artifact, found in the early Bronze Age burial in Asia Minor, is considered the oldest such find in the region, the dating of which has been accurately established. The amulet was discovered in the Kasık burial ground located in southwestern Turkey. The item lay in a pythos, a large clay vessel used for burials. Today, the earliest recognized meteorite iron artifacts are beads from Egypt, found near the site of El Gurzi and dated to 3300 BC. Also known are finds from the Orenburg region in Russia, where in Yamna culture mound, archaeologists discovered a knife and chisel and a gnat's plane dating back to 2700 BC. During excavations in Kasık, in addition to the amulet, burials with rich funerary attributes were found, which indicates the high status of the deceased. Analysis confirmed that the iron of the amulet is indeed of meteorite origin, which further increases its historical and scientific value. The mystery of Ogham. Ogham, often called the Russian Stonehenge, is one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Russia. Located in the steppes of the southern Urals, this megalithic complex is striking in its size and precision of planning, which makes it similar to the famous Stonehenge in Great Britain, both in astronomical functions and in geographical latitude. Ogham is a round fortress with two concentric rings of walls and streets connecting dwellings, which were built taking into account the astronomical knowledge of the ancients. Research has shown that the buildings in Ogham were built in such a way as to observe 18 astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes. This indicates a high level of astronomical knowledge of the people who inhabited this region in the Bronze Age. Ogham not only attracts archaeologists, but is also a subject of interest for researchers of anomalous phenomena. Unusual magnetic anomalies are recorded in the area of the complex, which sometimes affect the operation of electronic devices. These anomalies, as well as a number of other unexplained phenomena, give rise to various theories, including suggestions that Ogham could have been used or even created by extraterrestrial civilizations. In addition, the unique architecture and complex water supply system testify to the high level of social organization and engineering skill of its builders. These qualities make Ogham one of the key Bronze Age monuments in Eurasia. Tombs of the Elite Lords. In the highlands of the Peruvian Andes, in the province of Vilcas-Huaman, Ayacucho region, archaeologists have discovered 7 ancient tombs belonging to the upper classes. According to researchers, the age of human remains in the tombs is approaching 2,900 years. This time predates the Wari culture, which flourished in the Andes and coastal regions of what is now Peru between approximately 500 and 1000 AD. The found burials belong to outstanding personalities who were called Lords of Vilcas-Huaman. At the excavation site, archaeologists discovered 3 mounds surrounded by terraces with stone walls and many fragments of ceramics. Under the circular structure, scientists discovered several pits covered with slabs containing remains. Vessels as offerings were found along with the bodies. During the excavations, archaeologists found many funeral objects, including metal needles, rings, and gold feathers. These finds indicate that the burials belong to the elite class. 5 skeletons found in Wolf's Lair. During excavations at the Wolf's Lair site in Poland, where Adolf Hitler's headquarters was located, archaeologists discovered 5 human skeletons. The find included the remains of 3 adults and 2 children, one of whom was a newborn. The peculiarity of the burial was that the bodies were naked and without limbs, which indicates the unusual nature of the burial. The Wolf's Lair, hidden in a dense forest and protected by barbed wire, guard towers, and minefields, served as a place where Nazi leaders planned their military operations. This base was destroyed by the Nazis during the retreat from the Red Army in January 1945. Among the artifacts found near the bodies were thunderstones, fossils of ancient sea creatures that in ancient times were considered magical talismans that could bring good luck in battle or protect against lightning. Octavian Bartoszewski, a participant in the excavations, suggested suggested that the bodies may have been buried as a ritual sacrifice to ensure success and prosperity for those who occupied the building. Hermann Goering, the previous owner of the building, is known for his interest in the occult, which may explain the presence of such an unusual burial in his residence. The Nazis, including Hitler, were known for their obsession with the supernatural, which was reflected in their predilection for various occult practices and theories. This discovery not only confirms the dark legacy of the Nazi regime, but also once again demonstrates its desire to use any means, including mysticism and sacrifice, to achieve its goals. Excalibur of Islamic origin. In 1994, an ancient sword was discovered in Valencia on the east coast of Spain, the ancient origin of which had long remained a mystery. Finally, in honor of the 75th anniversary of the Valencian Department of Archaeology, experts carried out an in-depth analysis of this and other artifacts from their collections. Using modern dating methods, experts have determined that the sword dates back to the 10th century and was made during the Islamic era in Valencia. Finds of such swords in the region are extremely rare due to the characteristics of the local soil, which makes their preservation difficult. The project leader, archaeologist Jose Miguel Osuna, noted that the length of the sword blade is 45 centimeters. A special feature of the weapon is its handle, decorated with bronze plates and notches, which is characteristic of the Islamic period. The absence of a guard and the size of the sword suggests that it belonged to a mounted warrior from the times of the Andalusian Caliphate, and also bears the features of this Gothic weapon. Tomb and thousands of relics. Archaeologists have made a surprising discovery at Wuandang, one of the largest archaeological sites in the Kingdom of Chu. A sumptuous 2,200-year-old tomb has been unearthed in eastern China that may have belonged to an emperor of the Kingdom of Chu, an important region during Chinese history. Chu was one of the 7 warring kingdoms, along with Qin, Han, Wei, Zhao, Qi, and Yan. Their unification is considered the dawn of modern China. The Kingdom of Chu existed for more than 800 years until it was overthrown by the Kingdom of Qin in 223 BC. At Uwendon, researchers found a cemetery with a chariot, sacrifice pits, and a tomb that likely belonged to the owner of the cemetery. Among the many artifacts, boards for the burial chamber, bamboo mats, and lacquerware attracted particular attention. In total, more than 1,000 cultural relics were found, dating back to approximately 220 BC. Among them are bronze ritual vessels, musical instruments, lacquerware, and plant remains. The most interesting find was the central coffin with an inscription containing more than 1,000 hieroglyphs. The scale of the tomb, its complex structure, and rich contents led researchers to believe that it belonged to the emperor of the Chu kingdom. To preserve the remains, archaeologists worked in a low-oxygen laboratory built at the excavation site. Digital scanning and video recording were used to create a 3D model of the tomb. Researchers have unraveled the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript has intrigued scientists and cryptographers for more than 600 years. This document, filled with ciphertext and unusual illustrations, gives rise to many hypotheses, from magic spells to obscene texts. But researchers from Macquarie University have concluded that the contents of the manuscripts are not only decent, but also contain information that was not for everyone at the beginning of the 15th century. Dr. Keegan Brewer, the study's lead author, says the manuscript is a medieval reference book on gynecology, including information on sex, contraception, and the treatment of gynecological diseases. The encrypted nature of the text suggested that access to this information was sought to be limited to a certain group of readers, women, which is a clear example of gender censorship. The manuscript contains many illustrations of plants, animals, and people, but the researchers' special attention was drawn to the drawings of naked women pointing to their genitals. These images clearly hint at the gynecological focus of the text. Women's secrets, as women's health was called in the Middle Ages, were heavily censored despite extensive study. The patriarchal culture of the era feared the female body and its functions, which was reflected in the medical texts of the time. One of the largest and most enigmatic illustrations, known as rosettes, may symbolize the generally accepted views on sex and contraception of the time. According to the ideas of that time, the uterus consisted of 7 chambers and the vagina had 2 openings. Perhaps the 9 circles in the illustration symbolize these anatomical details. Thus, the Voynich manuscript may not be just a collection of meaningless symbols or a joke, as some have suggested, but an important historical document revealing approaches to women's health in medieval Europe. Shiva Linga. In the city of Sirsi in India, there is a unique place of pilgrimage, Sahasralinga. Here, amidst the natural beauty, there are stone images of Shiva Linga, which delight with their appearance especially during the Mahashivaratri festival. At this time, the water level in the river drops, making the sculptures visible and attracting thousands of pilgrims and tourists who want to see and worship the sacred lingas. Shiva Lingam is a symbol of Shiva, one of the main deities in Hinduism, representing the source of creation and destruction. Interestingly, there are not only religious but also scientific controversies surrounding the Shiva Lingam. Some proponents of theories about ancient astronauts argue that the Shiva Lingam may be a powerful technological device similar in function to a modern nuclear reactor. Based on the shape and properties of the lingam, they suggest that ancient people may have used advanced technology. On the other hand, modern scientists may interpret the Shiva Linga as a symbol of atomic energy, which also has the potential for both great benefit and destruction. This analogy emphasizes the dual nature of Shiva, who in the Hindu tradition is both the creator and the destroyer. Remains of a lost pagan cult. Archaeologists near Prague have found a unique bronze buckle depicting a snake-like creature devouring a person or a frog-like object. This discovery may point to a forgotten pagan cult that connected different regions of Central Europe in the early Middle Ages. The buckle found in the Czech Republic was initially thought to be unique, but similar buckles have also been discovered in Germany and Hungary. Archaeologist Jiří Macacek claims that the find may indicate a previously unknown pagan cult that survived before the spread of Christianity. The symbolism of the buckle is still unclear, but researchers suggest that the image may be associated with creation myths, where the fighting against a snake or dragon is a central element and the interaction between a snake and a frog may indicate a fertility cult. Research shows that these buckles were made in the 7th and 8th centuries and were worn by the Avars, a nomadic people who settled in Hungary and created an influential state in Central Europe. The items were made from copper mined in the Slovak Ore Mountains and became popular among other people of the region, including the Slavs. The dark history of ancient columns. Sweden is a harsh country, and even against its backdrop, there are especially bewitchingly gloomy places. One of these is a trio of stone pillars on Gallows Hill, in a nature reserve north of Visby. The site claims to be the only surviving medieval execution site in Europe. The Gullbeget gallows, located on top of a small hill in the municipality of Visby, is an eerie but historically important site, one of the few remaining from the Middle Ages. Built in the 13th century, it was used to execute local criminals. Tall stone pillars surrounded by a low stone wall supported wooden beams from which the condemned were hung with ropes and hooks. The gallows was visible from the sea, serving as a warning of the harsh consequences that awaited the criminals. During archaeological excavations, the bodies of about 30 people were discovered near the gallows. All of them were executed. Some bodies were in wooden coffins, which was luxury and indicated that these people belonged to the upper class. This shows that not only robbers and the poor were executed here, but also members of the elite. Stone map of the night sky. Italian scientists discovered an ancient celestial map, which is about 2,500 years old, on the territory of the ancient fortress of Castelliere di Piccolo in the province of Trieste. This discovery may be the oldest celestial map found in Italy. Castelliere di Piccolo served as a defensive structure between 1800 and 1650 BC. Among the artifacts are two round stones with a diameter of 50 centimeters. One of them, which has a single round cutout, supposedly depicts the sun. Another stone, according to experts, is a celestial map that shows the starry sky above the fortress in the 4th century BC. The stone is engraved with images of constellations including Cassiopeia, Orion, Scorpius, and the Pleiades. Using computer modeling, scientists found that in those days, the star Theta Scorpii could be observed from the fortress, which is now not visible from there. The artifacts were created approximately 2,500 years ago by one person using a hammer and a rough metal chisel with a 6-7 mm tip. The tool found nearby is today on display at the Maggia Archaeological Museum. George seal from the 13th century. In Suffolk, England, Paul Henderson and his 10-year-old son George went on a search expedition to the fields of Woodbridge. Arming their son with a metal detector, they did not keep themselves waiting. Within 10 minutes, the device gave a signal. At a depth of 12 centimeters, George discovered an unusual, flat, oval-shaped object with pointed corners, which shocked his father. This item surpassed all previous finds of George, who has been involved in this hobby with his father since childhood. Paul, as a history buff, immediately recognized the item as a copper medieval seal. It is decorated with an image of the Virgin Mary and Child and a Latin inscription indicating its affiliation with the Batley Monastery. Returning home, father and son turn to the coroner, who confirmed that the seal dates back to the beginning of the 13th century and has great historical value. The seal was later sold at auction for £4,000, with the proceeds divided between George and the owner of the field. Message from space. The Inga River in Brazil is home to the mysterious Inga stone in the state of Paraíba, causing much controversy in the archaeological community. Unknown geometric symbols are carved into the surface of this 46-meter-high gneiss stone. The origin and meaning of these symbols has not yet been revealed. Do you think they indicate a forgotten civilization, or are they a message from the ancestors? This stone is at least 6,000 years old. There are other stones encased with carvings nearby, but they are not that interesting. Archaeologists Gabriel Baraldi discovered the first Inga cave in 1988. In total, he examined almost 500 symbols on the walls of the caves. Most of them are mysterious, but some undoubtedly depict space objects such as the Milky Way and the constellation Orion. Some scientists see in them similarities with ancient Phoenician and Egyptian writings, others with runes. The study of the symbols showed that they may be associated with ancient beliefs, for example with the cult of fertility. One research has suggested that the Inga stone may contain an ancient solar calendar. Other hypotheses involve contact with extraterrestrial civilizations or even ancient formulas or mathematical equations. Ritual during a change of power. Archaeological excavations at the site of Yucanal in northern Guatemala have uncovered traces of an ancient ritual that may have symbolized a public change of the old regime of the Mayan civilization. At the top of the pyramid temple, charred human bones and royal jewelry were found. These artifacts may indicate specific burial rites or ceremonies. The analysis showed that the bones belonged to at least 4 adults, with 3 of them identified as males. One of the skeletons was exposed to high temperatures of over 800 degrees Celsius. This research confirms that the remains found may have been members of the royal family, originally buried elsewhere and burned as part of a ritual transferred to the pyramid a century later. Among the items found were 1,500 fragments of various jewelry, pendants, beads, plates, and mosaics made of green stone, obsidian objects, blades, 10,000 beads from seashells, as well as pendants made from mammal teeth. Fragments of a mosaic funerary mask made of green stone were also discovered, which is typical of royal tombs of the period. Radiocarbon dating indicates that the death occurred approximately 100 years before the burning. This supports the theory that the burial may have been part of a ritual marking the symbolic and literal destruction of the previous dynastic line of Konvitsnol. This may have been a highly ceremonial event associated with a change in the political order of the region. Ivory dice. Archaeologists from India discovered unique rectangular ivory dice at an excavation site in Kijadi, Sivaganga district. These dice served as a source of entertainment for the upper class of society in ancient times. This is the first time that a rectangular dice has been discovered at Kijadi, while cubic dice were found during previous excavations. Archaeologists from Tamil Nadu clarified that the dice was found at a depth of 30-40 centimeters. Its dimensions are 4.5 centimeters in length, 0.9 centimeters in height, and 0.9 centimeters in thickness. On the 4 sides of the dice, there are signs indicating the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. In Tamil literature, this dice is known as Pagadaikai, which means 4-sided dice. Radiocarbon dating of coal discovered at Kijadi in 2017 showed that there had been a settlement here since 200 BC, proving that urban civilization existed in Tamil Nadu as early as the Sangam era. Underground room under the pyramids. Scientists from Japan and Egypt conducted a study of the giant necropolis in Giza. Their attention was drawn to a plot in the Western Cemetery. Members of the ruling family and high-ranking officials were buried here. The burials were in tombs with flat roofs arranged in a row. There is a free area between them that has not been previously studied. Japanese and Egyptian scientists examined it using ground-penetrating radar and electrical tomography, which made it possible to look deeper without excavation. The scans showed that at a depth of 0.5 meter to 2 meters, there is an L-shaped structure measuring approximately 10 by 10 meters. The authors of the study believe that this is not a natural formation, but an artificial one due to its regular shape and location. Researchers suggest that this structure may be part of a deeper structure. At a depth of 5 to 10 meters, the instruments also record an anomaly indicating the heterogeneity of the rock. This could be another tomb or an artifact chamber. The largest snake in the world. If you suffer from ophidiophobia, the fear of snakes, then it is better to skip this fragment of the video. And for everyone else, welcome to the world of paleontological discoveries in India. Well, a team of scientists from the Indian Institute of Technology Roorkee made an amazing discovery. Researchers accidentally found fossils of a giant ancient reptile. Imagine a snake 15 meters long and weighing 1 ton that lived in what is now India 47 million years ago. This species is named Vasica indicus after the mythological snake king from Hindu mythology associated with the god Shiva. This snake turned out to be larger even than the Colombian Titanoboa, which was previously considered the largest snake in the world. The remains of Titanoboa were discovered in Colombia in 2009, and it lived about 60 million years ago. Despite its impressive size, Vasica indicus was not poisonous. It killed its victims by squeezing them like modern anacondas and pythons. Vasica indicus was a slow-moving ambush predator that lived in marshy areas near the coast during a period when global temperatures were significantly higher than today. The fossils were found in an area that is now dry and dusty, but the presence of a large aquatic predator indicates it was once swampland. New details about Neanderthals. Scientists have been studying one of the oldest Neanderthal artifacts in Europe for more than 70 years, a bare bone with engraved lines. Found in a cave in Poland between 115 and 130,000 years ago, this bone has now been studied using modern techniques such as microscopy and X-ray scanning. It turned out that the 17 lines on the bones are not random scratches but were deliberately applied in a certain order. This discovery suggests that Neanderthals used bone not just as a utilitarian object, but as a carrier of symbolic information, which may indicate their advanced cognitive abilities. The discovery of a bone with intentional carvings suggests that Neanderthals may have had forms of symbolic communication much earlier than thought. This artifact becomes a key element for understanding the ancient history of mankind. It not only expands knowledge of the historical context of Neanderthals, but also confirms their capacity for high-level thinking. Unusual Pandora viruses. In July 2013, scientists in Paris presented results that shed light on an entirely new class of microorganisms called Pandora viruses. This discovery was especially important because the genetic material of these viruses is 94% different from anything previously known to science. This unique structure of their genome became one of the bases for supporting the panspermia hypothesis, according to which life on Earth could have been brought from outer space. Pandora viruses not only expand our understanding of microbiology, but also raise questions about the origin and evolution of viruses in general. They belong to giant viruses that can be seen under a normal microscope and, interestingly, have genomes that are complex enough to allow them to perform unique functions that were previously thought impossible for viruses. Not only do Pandora viruses demonstrate unusual abilities to survive and adapt, but they may also play a key role in understanding how genetic material is transferred between different species. Nowadays, opening Pandora's box has become a catchphrase, which means doing an action with irreversible consequences that cannot be undone. This is where the virus got its name. The body of a frozen man 400 years ago. In the Alps, archaeologists have discovered the body of a man who died approximately 400 years ago. Researchers believe that the man, found at an altitude of 3,600 meters above sea level, went to the mountains and froze due to bad weather. The man was dressed in rich 17th century clothing, indicating his high social position. He was probably a merchant or traveler. More than 150 gold coins, weapons, a dagger, a sword and a pistol, leather boots, and the remains of mules were found on him. This incredible find gives us a unique opportunity to explore the lives and journeys of people in the early modern era. Clothing, personal effects, and other artifacts found with the body provide valuable information about the fashion, trade, and technology of the time. Scientists plan to conduct a thorough examination of the remains and artifacts to learn more about the life and death of this mysterious traveler. Pocket computer of the 11th century. British historian Frederica Gigante discovered one of the oldest astrolabes from the 11th century with inscriptions in Arabic and Hebrew in an Italian museum. This astronomical instrument, used to measure angles and determine the positions of stars, became an important find in the museum in Verona. This artifact is so multifunctional that by modern standards it can easily be classified as a pocket computer. Frederica Gigante came across the device while browsing the museum's catalog online and asked for more information but was was told that the object had not yet been studied. Upon arrival at the museum, the scientists discovered not only Arabic, but also difficult-to-see Hebrew inscriptions on the astrolabe, which in her opinion indicates scientific exchange between the Arab, Jewish, and Christian worlds over the centuries. Research has shown that the astrolabe may have been made in Al-Andalus, a Muslim region in Spain. The instrument retains Muslim prayers and Hebrew lines, highlighting its cultural and religious significance. The similarity of the found astrolabe with Byzantine and early European models confirms a hypothesis of its Iberian origin. This unique artifact is believed to have first come into the collection of Italian aristocrat Ludovico Moscardo in the 17th century, and later passed to the Maniscalchi family, who founded the museum in 1990 to preserve their private collection. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. Sacsayhuaman, located on the outskirts of Cusco, Peru, is one of the most magnificent and mysterious architectural structures left by the Incas. Although most scholars agree that the bulk of this fortress was built in the 15th century, there are theories that argue that its foundations may have been long before that time. Sacsayhuaman is striking in its scale and engineering precision. Huge stone blocks, many of which weigh more than 200 tons, are folded so precisely that it is impossible to insert a knife blade between them. These stones were cut and laid with such precision that the fortress became stronger over the years, withstanding the numerous earthquakes that destroyed many other Inca buildings. Some researchers associate Sacsayhuaman with the legendary descent of the god Viracocha from heaven, which adds to the mysticism of the whole structure. According to Incan mythology, Viracocha was the creator of all things and the patron of civilization, and his arrival marked the beginning of a new era of development and prosperity. The Sacsayhuaman complex includes not only military structures but also religious and administrative buildings, which indicates its multifunctional significance in Inca culture. The complex also contains numerous platforms that are believed to have been used for astronomical observation and ritual ceremonies. Skull 270 million years old. A fossilized skull belonging to an ancient ancestor of amphibians has been discovered in the collection of the Smithsonian University's National Museum of Natural History. Its approximate age is 270 million years. Scientists describe the skull as a new species of proto-amphibian, named Kermitops kratus after the famous Muppet Kermit the Frog. One George Washington University student emphasized the importance of using popular names to draw attention to scientific discoveries. He noted that the name Kermit is ideal to describe the ancient amphibian, connecting it with modern representatives of this class of animals. The skull was found by paleontologist Nicholas Houghton during field research in Texas, in an area known as the Red Barrels. This area, dating back to the early Permian period, contains many fossils including the remains of ancient reptiles and amphibians. After its discovery in 1984, the skull lay in museum collections for decades until it was examined by Arjun Mann, who singled it out from other specimens for detailed study. The joint efforts of researchers helped establish that the found skull belongs to a new genus of ancient amphibians. Ancient curse tablets. At the bottom of a 2,500-year-old well in the Keramikos district of Athens, archaeologists have discovered 30 ancient curses engraved on lead tablets. With the help of texts on tablets, people in ancient times called upon the gods of the underworld to harm other people. These curses were ritual texts, usually scratched into small lead objects. The ancient Greeks were known to engrave curses on tablets and place them in wells or graves to curse someone with whom they had a serious disagreement. At a certain time in Athens, it was forbidden to place curse tablets into graves, but villains came up with a strategy to secretly throw their curses into wells. In the well, archaeologists discovered many artifacts and water vessels, as well as coins and food remains. Since water, especially drinking water, was considered sacred, it was believed that every well had a nymph who protected the water, and angering this nymph could have serious consequences. Therefore, small vessels of liquids and other gifts were thrown into the well to please these emotionally unstable deities. These ruins are older than the Egyptian pyramids. Archaeologists have found a mysterious complex from the New Stone Age near Prague, which turned out to be older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The open medallion, built about 7,000 years ago, may have served as a meeting place for local farmers. Its diameter is approximately 55 meters, which would allow the Leaning Tower of Pisa to be placed inside. Miroslav Kraus, director of the excavations, claims that the structure belonged to the pottery culture that existed between 4,900 and 4,000 4400 BC. The first mention of the Vinnar Circle appeared in the 1980s when it was partially opened during the laying of communications. Modern excavations have allowed it to be seen in its entirety and have uncovered pottery, animal bones, and stone tools. Analysis of organic remains will help pinpoint the date of construction and possibly link it to a nearby Neolithic settlement. Study of the medallion shows that the culture of its builders spread throughout Central Europe, touching the territories of modern Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, where they lived in lawn houses accommodate up to 30 people. 7,000-year-old plow marks. Archaeologists from France and Switzerland discovered at excavations in the city of Sion at the Arsenal monument the oldest traces of a plow arda in Europe, dating back to the period between 5100 and 4700 BC. This discovery, made in 2017, suggests that already in the early stages of the Neolithic in Europe, people began to use draft animals to work the land. Such artifacts, indicating the plowing of the earth in the Neolithic, are extremely rare and difficult to date accurately. For example, in northern Italy, archaeologists have discovered traces of a primitive plow and animal hoof prints dating back to 4300–4000 BC. Prior to this, the earliest evidence of the use of the plow in Switzerland was considered to be finds dating back to the first half of the 4th millennium BC. 260-day calendar. How many days are there in a year? Anyone on our planet knows, but for most people this number sounds like 365, and for the inhabitants of some part of Mesoamerica, it is the number 260. As well as 3,000 years ago, these people used calendars in which there are 260 days a year. And just the other day, researchers found the earliest evidence that ancient stone structures were used to mark the seasons. With the help of lidar and aerial photography, archaeologists have discovered hundreds of architectural complexes that have been aligned to synchronized observations of the sunrise and sunset of the sun, moon, and other celestial objects in accordance with this 260-day cycle. This calendar was most likely invented based on the cycles of corn growing and human reproduction. The earliest documented evidence of the use of this calendar was a glyph depicting the 7 deer, one of the days of the calendar, as part of the 3rd century BC fresco in Guatemala. Unfortunately, these cultures did not leave written records of earlier periods, so it was difficult for scientists to prove that people used the 260-day cycle of the year until archaeologists found the stone remains of a giant calendar. Judging by the size of this structure, it was of great importance to the Olmecs, Maya, and other cultures of that time, at least during the period when corn cultivation became widespread in their region. Excavating in the impenetrable jungle is a very difficult task, so aerial photography with lidar has become a real miracle for archaeologists. Thanks to such opportunities, researchers can know in advance where to conduct their excavations. In addition to the stone calendar, experts have found many other buildings, pyramids, and temples, and soon in my next videos I will definitely talk about them. In the meantime, we will go to Israel, where, according to archaeologists, they found the tomb of the midwife of Christ, the most famous jester of the 16th century. Once upon a time in the 1540s, Jean-Antoine d'Angleray, nicknamed Shiko, was born in France. He was not from a wealthy family, but he was still able to study at the famous Parisian college. However, he loved the sword more than books. At first, Shiko served as a soldier for the Duke of Savoy, then became a courier, and then worked for the French King Charles IX. When Charles died, Henry III ascended the throne. Shiko had a sharp tongue, so he quickly became one of the court jesters. The jesters were important people in the royal courts. They entertained and gave advice. For example, before Shiko, there was a famous jester, Triboulet. Shiko not only joked, but also fought. He participated in the siege of La Rochelle and became a lieutenant of Henry III. Shiko was smart and funny. People loved him. He married Renée Bayard and they had 6 sons. After 10 years, Shiko became a real nobleman, but soon a civil war broke out in France and Shiko found himself next to the new king Henry IV. Together, they fought and won. Shiko is said to have died a funny and strange death. He captured enemy Henry the Chelony and brought him to the king. And, however, Henry hit Shiko on the head and he soon died. However, no one knows for sure how it really happened. Perhaps Shiko simply died of his wounds, as befits a warrior jester. This happened in 1592. That was an interesting story about Jean-Antoine d'Angleray, who was both a funny jester and a brave warrior. You will hear more interesting stories about the ancient world and archaeological finds only on our channel. So subscribe and write a kind comment under the video. Thanks for your views. Bye everyone!